received her Master of Science degree in nursing from East Carolina University. She also holds a certification in the care of adult medical and surgical patients. She is a wife, mother, and born again child of the Most High King.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers. We are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 106.9. We're here on Family Health Matters, where we know and believe that the health of the family matters. And so today we have a special guest in the studio with us that we're going to be talking about advanced care planning. That is not just for seniors, it's for everybody. I have with me live in the studio, Vicki Dougherty. She's the coordinator and part of the Community Outreach uh, Center at ECU Health. And we're going to talk a little bit more about her. So if you want to join in on the conversation, you can call us at 252-756-2008. So we're going to talk about advanced care planning. Vicki is one of 3 advanced care planning outreach coordinators for ECU Health, formerly Vidant. Together, they cover over 29 counties, the ECU Health services. The goal is to assure that people receive the medical care that they want, even when they are not able to talk or do for themselves and doing their recovery, and even when there's really no hope for recovery. So welcome, Vicki, to the studio, and welcome to Family Health Matters. Now, anyone, you want to add anything else to your introduction?
No, I'm just glad to be here.
All right. Well, we're so glad to have you with us today. So the big question everybody wants to know is, tell us, what is advanced care planning and why is that important?
Okay. Advanced care planning is really an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that a lot of us don't take advantage of. It's the opportunity to let us know what kind of care you would want if you could not speak for yourself. And 90% of us will not be able to speak for ourselves, especially at the end of our life or at some point in our life. So what you really need to do is let us know who's going to be your voice when you can't speak for yourself. And it needs to be the person that you choose, not that fits the requirements for the state or meets the requirements at the hospital. We want you to pick that person because you know your family a whole lot better than we do.
Right.
And when you talk with your family and have a conversation about this, they kind of know what you want. They know your values and what's important to you. And what we're really trying to get at is a point where we know what you want and the hospital is positioned to provide the services that you want and need.
Okay, so this is usually a service that is more in place when you're in the hospital, or can be in place wherever?
You want it in place wherever.
Mm-hmm.
It plays a big role in the hospital because if you're unable to speak for yourself, a lot of times that's where you are.
Right.
If you're unconscious or if you had an automobile accident, anything like that, you would be in the hospital. So yes, we would want to know who's going to be your voice at that point. But just having this information done is for everybody in the community, whether you're been in the hospital or not.
Okay. And so that means that you need to carry this document or know where it is and easy for you to find or your family members to find.
Right.
Okay. So that tells us a little bit about what it is. So tell us about the process and tell us about the steps and how do we do an advanced care planning. I think this is going to be very important. I want us to get this done early because I don't want us to run out of time.
Okay.
And then we'll dive into a little bit about what these documents actually looks like.
Okay. Basically, we have decided, we've been doing this work since about 2000 that I've been involved in it. And when we first started, we really thought the important piece was to get the documents completed.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look back, we realized that was really not the important piece. That what we really wanted people was to do was to slow down and think about what they really wanted. So the first step in this whole process is just to stop and think about what really brings value and meaning to your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's different for every individual. So there's no way we at the hospital level will know what's important to you unless somebody tells us.
Right.
So we want you to really stop and think about it. We have, as a part of our toolkit, as part of our toolkit, we actually have some questions that you can answer that will kind of make you think towards, what really is important to you. most of us have had some death experiences in our lifetime, and some of them have been probably pretty bad, but some of them hopefully have been good. And we want your death to be good. And we want you to be able to guide us so we can make it that way for you. So you think about what's important to you. And once you think about what is really important, then we want you to talk to your family. These conversations are really and truly the most important step in this entire process. If you don't talk with your family, I have people all the time tell me, well, my children know what I want.
Yeah.
Your children do not know what you want unless you've told them.
Right.
And even if they think they know what you want, when it gets into a crisis situation, people get upset. They don't remember things well. And it's just going to be very difficult for your family to think what's important to you or your loved ones or whoever might be involved in your care.
Right.
So it's really important that you talk to your family. And I recommend that you do it as a group. In a
that's a good
group
point.
setting, because that way everybody hears the same thing and you can kind of talk them. And if they have questions, they can ask them then. Because if they have to make those decisions when you can't speak to them, then they just got to go on their best memory.
Okay.
And we can't really think of every situation that might happen. So we really want to put emphasis on what you value and what's important to you. What's a good day look like for you?
Okay. So this is sort of like a family, it can be like a family gathering or pulling the children or pulling the family together and just have that conversation.
I had a lady this morning that told me that Mother's Day was coming up this Sunday and that she was going to have all her children home. So she took documents for all of them because all of them are over age 18. And she said, we're just going to talk about it as a family and kind of remove some of that fear factor.
Right. And while you were thinking about what you were saying about that, and even in that conversation, maybe there might be other people who might want to decide that they want to go ahead and do this as well.
Exactly.
And then the whole family knows what everybody's wishes are.
And we have done whole families.
Oh,
and
okay.
In some of our community events,
Uh-huh.
we've had the children, the parents, and even some of the adult grandchildren that have completed their documents all at the same time.
Okay.
Because they felt like it was important that they all knew. And I will tell you, I'll tell you my Thanksgiving story, which I think is pretty important. I have a friend in Rocky Mount that every Thanksgiving her family gets together. And she started this back in 2000. And she gave them all this Thanksgiving lunch. This huge, how you get Thanksgiving, you get everything to eat.
Yeah.
So she fed them. And then once they finished the main meal, she said, okay, y'all, we're going to go around the table and talk about what's important to us as far as our health care. And her grandmama said, no, we're not. This is not a discussion for a holiday.
Oh, okay.
And so my friend said, well, if you don't talk about it, you're not getting dessert.
Oh.
So she actually withheld her dessert and all of us dessert until they went around the room and talked about it. And she said it was really awkward that people really didn't know what they were talking about, but they've been doing it every year since.
Right.
And when her husband was diagnosed with cancer, probably 10 years ago now, but when he was diagnosed with cancer, all she had to do was what he wanted her to do because her whole family knew that she was doing what he wanted her to do. She had none of that little snap, that sometimes happens.
Right.
Things just get kind of exaggerated when somebody's sick.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have any of that because they all knew what he wanted.
Okay.
So that is the real value of talking about it. And the more people you tell what you really want, the more likely it is it's going to happen.
Oh, that's a very good point because that takes the pressure off of any one person.
Exactly.
If you just tell, and I know sometimes it seems, I've heard as a nurse, sometimes family members will say, one sister would say, mom said this, another sister would say, mom said that, and it's not identical. And as you mentioned earlier, it depends too on how emotional you are as far as what you actually remember them saying. Well, this is a great conversation. Let me give the phone number again. If you want to join in on the conversation, 252-756-2008 is the number to call. Okay, so we got down to think about it. We want to know what we're doing, thinking about at least getting it in your mind. And then you want to talk about it, include as many people as you possibly can so that everybody will understand your wishes and then maybe get them to share their wishes as well.
Exactly.
Okay, and then what's next?
Well, once we talk about it, we really want you to document it because our documents are important. They're the legal reason that we can do what we do.
Okay.
So it's very important in North Carolina. In North Carolina, the documents that we're talking about, actually that we work with, are the living will and the healthcare power of attorney. And both of those documents have to be notarized and you have to have 2 witnesses.
Okay.
So our organization actually, well, I'm a notary, and the other 2 coordinators are also notaries. So we can go out and notarize documents, and we pull people from the community to be the other witnesses.
Okay.
And
great.
so it really works out really well. It's a one-stop deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the documents that we use are very simple.
Mm-hmm.
We found out the statutory documents that we were using back in 2000 were way too complicated. And people didn't understand what they were signing.
Right.
So we had a really smart group out in Western North Carolina that got together and developed this practical form. So the form that we use is actually good across the state of North Carolina.
Awesome.
But it's a 1-page healthcare power of attorney and a 1-page living will, and then a signature page.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, is that document, say if I got it done here and I moved to Virginia, does that document weigh the same in Virginia? Do you know that?
Every state, I'm afraid, has their own documents.
Okay.
However, I will tell you that North Carolina has the strictest requirements on our documents because we require the notary and 2 witnesses. So most states will honor ours.
Okay.
And most doctors, if they see that you have taken the time to complete one of these documents, they're going to try to honor it because they feel like if you've taken the time to do it, then they need to try to honor it as best they can.
Okay.
So yes, they will certainly look at it. And they'll call. At least they can call the right person, right, to get it there to make decisions for you.
Okay.
But if you live in Virginia or if you live in another state, then you would want to get the documents for that state.
Right. Okay. All right. Good. So we got to make sure that we get this in writing. Okay, and get it legal.
Maybe we want it to be legal.
Okay, so the notary is there.
It protects you and it protects us as well.
Okay.
But mainly it protects you. If you make it legal, then you feel like you've done something that you can count on.
Okay. So with that, then if I'm in the hospital and say I have all my documents there, and just for example, just say my daughter comes in and says, I don't want to do that. I want mama to have more of this treatment or more of this. Right. Well, does my document outweigh her voice?
It depends on who you've listed as your healthcare agent.
Okay.
So if she's your healthcare agent, then she might be able to change it.
Okay.
However, if you do your living will and you're absolutely certain this is what you want, you can say, follow my living will.
Okay.
And if you have checked the box that says follow my living will, then yes, it will outweigh her.
Okay. I know I've had people ask that question.
That does not mean that doctor's not going to try to talk to her and help her understand
why
you wanted what you wanted.
Good point.
While we're at that situation. But we really want the family to be on board. But yes, and we wouldn't, if the family was distraught, we certainly wouldn't go in and start talking about discontinuing life support or anything like that. Plus, before we ever talk about that, it has to go through the legal committee, the ethics committee. There are a lot of different levels that it has to go through before we even get to that point.
Absolutely.
But yes, if you have a document that states that you do what you want us to do, what you say do, then that gives us a whole lot more authority.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that in there, the importance and how important and valuable that document is.
It is very valuable.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've got it written and the document is signed. We have the notarized, and then we have what?
You need to share it.
Okay.
Because if you do this document and you put it in some safe place in your home and don't tell anybody about it, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good.
Right.
You want to get it out. You want to share it with your family and your loved ones. You want to share it with, especially with the healthcare agent, but also with the people you didn't choose as your healthcare agent. I tell everybody, you assume that you would think your husband might be your healthcare agent. Mine is not. My husband is not my healthcare agent.
Okay.
And I always say it's because he would pull the plug way too quick. But in reality, he doesn't like hospitals. He's not going to ask the questions I would ask. He's not going to stay up there any longer than he has to. He's going to run in and run out. And I know that about him. So I don't want him up there making decisions for me. So we have talked about it. And my son is the one that would make decisions for me because he's heard it his whole life and knows what I want, what's important to him.
Well, that's a very good point that you made, that people sometimes feel that it has to be my spouse or it has to be my daughter. And it goes back to what we said before, think about what you want and who would do what you do.
Who would act like you would act.
Right.
And who would do what you would do. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and even in your children, because you have different children, have different personalities. And I think too, while we're talking about that, is it doesn't weigh that you love one more than the other. It's the fact that one would do what you said maybe more so than the other one, because somebody other's heart may be a little bit tender than the other person's heart, and you want to make sure that your wishes
and
are
you want
heard.
to make sure that you choose the one that, because you know your children a whole lot better than we do.
Right.
And if you don't have anything in place, then all of your children are going to have to make that decision together. And I will tell you from experience that is not a good situation.
Yeah.
Everybody feels a little bit differently. Even children that get along great end up at each other's throats. When there's a crisis.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I've seen that too at the bedside.
Really
I've seen it's hard, and I think that if you love your children, you love your family, that this is one of the best ways to go, because nobody can say, Aunt Jean wanted to do something different, but you have it right there right there in front of them. So that's
that
awesome.
Discussion, and that goes back to telling as many people as you can, because just because that healthcare agent knows doesn't mean that the rest of your family knows. So you want to make sure you do share that information with others. The other person or the other group that I think is really important that you share the information with is your faith community.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
we have some churches here in Greenville that are actually putting these documents on file at their church office, because it is so helpful to the pastor. To go in and say, okay, this she said she wanted this, and she said she wanted that, and Susie's the one I need to be talking to and supporting, and that way they can go to the hospital. Hopefully now they can go to the hospital and support your family, rather than going up there and asking for something different or hoping for something different.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good.
Really strong in talking with your faith.
Yeah, that's good, because that does make it easier for that pastor.
Exactly. They love us.
Yeah.
They love us to go out and have these conversations, because they have so often gotten caught up in those family dynamics. That are so hard to navigate.
Yeah. And they sometimes they become the mediator for the family, and they can say, this is what your family or your loved one have actually put in writing. And that can be sort of like that mediator or that buffer right there. Good point. Very good. Very good point. Okay. So we're shared, and making sure that it's on file, it's on record. And then what's next?
Then we want you to review it, because life changes. These documents are not written in stone. Once you do them, you can redo them anytime you want to.
Oh, okay.
So if you name somebody as your healthcare agent, they do something that really upsets you, or you don't trust them to make the right decisions anymore, all you do is fill out a new document and take them off your paperwork.
Oh, okay.
So, and the one with the most recent date is the one that we would accept. Plus your health changes over time. Your life situations change over time. You might divorce the person that you've got as your healthcare agent. And most people would not want their divorced spouse up there making decisions for them, but sometimes they forget to change it.
Right.
But no, you can update it at any time.
So now every time you update it, it has to be renotarized?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
But again, remember, it's a 5-page document total. It's 2 pages of directions, the healthcare power of attorney, the living will, and the notary page. And it's really mostly fill in the blank.
Okay.
So it really is very simple. We've tried to keep it as simple and practical as possible.
Okay. All righty. So those are the 5 steps that we need. Think about it, talk about it, put it in writing, share it, and review it. Okay. Awesome. Now, so that we won't run out of time, we still got a little time, but let's talk to us a little bit about what you mentioned. I think you called the person that is on there. What did you call them?
The healthcare agent.
Yeah, your agent.
Okay.
So I know it's somebody that you choose, and so do they have to be medically inclined?
No.
It's okay.
No. They need to know you as a person. They need to know what your values and your beliefs are.
Okay.
They have to be over the age of 18.
Okay.
They can be related to you, or they can't. I mean, it's your choice. It
Okay.
does not have to be your children. It doesn't have to be your husband. It can be your best friend. It can be somebody out in the community that you trust. It can be anybody you choose for it to be.
Okay.
And that's key, because that person has all the rights that you would have if you were able to talk for yourself. They can fire your doctor. They can move you to another hospital. They can ask for a second opinion. They can review your insurance records. They can do anything that you could do if you were able.
Okay.
And if you're unable to do something at some point in time, but then say you were unconscious, let's say you had a car accident and you were unconscious for a little while and somebody had to make some decisions. That's when we would look to your healthcare agent to make those decisions. But once you regain consciousness and you're on the road to recovery, you're back in charge.
Okay. Good point. Good point.
I mean, and it's not, we don't look to a healthcare agent until you can't make decisions for yourself. And as soon as you can make them for yourself again, then the healthcare agent's done. for that
Okay.
period.
Good.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, and I just thought about this. If you This does not have anything to do with your financial pieces. So that person who you designate as your, tell me the name again,
Healthcare.
your healthcare agent has nothing to do with your finances, or cannot go and write checks for you.
No, no.
Okay.
And the other good thing about that, Wendy, is that they're not responsible for your financial situation.
Good. Okay.
So
Good
their
point.
healthcare decisions are not guided by your financial situation.
Okay.
But no, it has nothing to do with your financial resources. It has nothing to do with your property.
Mm-hmm.
Your living will has nothing to do with property. Your property is your body
Uh-huh.
and what you want done with your body.
Okay, good. Because that was going to be my next question for us to talk a little bit about the healthcare power of attorney and the living will, those two documents.
They're the two that we really focus on because we do feel like they're most important to most people. Like I say, healthcare agent, that's your voice. It has a place on there where you can also say whether or not you're an organ donor. So you can just reinforce that.
Okay.
And then the living will kind of switches to, that's who you choose to speak for you in the healthcare agent. The living will is more of a, this is what I want.
Uh-huh.
If two doctors tell you that I'm not going to get any better, in other words, I'm actively dying, and that's the only time this living will comes into play.
Good point. Okay.
I mean, if you have an accident and you go to the hospital, we're going to do everything we can do to save you.
Uh-huh.
And once we get you stable, then we'll look at your situation. And if you're going to get better, we're going to continue to treat you just like we always have.
Okay.
If you're at this point where we don't think we can do anything to help you, that's when we might take out your advance directive and talk to your family.
Okay. Good point.
No hope for recovery.
Uh-huh.
So don't think just because you signed this paperwork doesn't mean you're never going to get a tube fitting or you're never going to get the life prolonging measures. If you need life prolonging measures because of a trauma event, you will still have that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But the living will is more for when two doctors agree that you're not going to live much longer. That your doctor that you're seeing has to make that statement, and then another doctor has to come in and review the information and see you and make sure that that's still correct. It also has to go through our legal committee to make sure everything's good. It has to go through our ethics committee a lot of times just to make sure that we're on the right track and make sure everything's valid. It's nothing that we rush into.
Right. Okay. That's good.
But if you were at the end stage of a disease process, say you had cancer, you had all the chemo, all the radiation that they could offer you, and there really wasn't anything else they could do to get you well. And two doctors agreed that you probably were not going to live but a relatively short period of time. At that point in time, would you want us to let you die naturally? Or if your heart stopped, would you want us to rush in with the CPR crash cart and try to bring you back get your heart pumping again? You still have the same cancer. You're still going to die within a short period of time, but it might keep you alive another day, but, and the CPR might not work.
Right.
So, I mean, there are all kinds of complications from CPR, as we all know.
Right.
But if you want us to try that, then that's something probably we can try. But if you don't want us to do that, if you want us just to let you die naturally, which is a very natural and beautiful process.
Yes, it is.
Then we can let you do that, and we will support you in that. We'll keep you comfortable. We will make sure that your mouth is wet, moist, and good mouth care. We're going to keep you free of pain. We're going to do all those things that we would do if we were getting you well. It's just we know we can't get you well.
Okay. Good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Because I've heard people say that they sort of shy away from doing the advanced directives because they have a question in their mind that, if I have the living will and something happens to me, are they just going to just say, okay, she's got this document and we're just going to, do nothing and just let them go ahead and die? And go ahead.
Yeah. We don't look at the living will until we know that you're you're already in the process of dying.
Okay. So now, does that cover the what we call the DNR, in the medical world, do not resuscitate. Okay. Yes. So there are more documents embedded into this document altogether.
And while I've got the opportunity, I want to say a DNR only is effective if your heart stops or you quit breathing. If anything else happens to you, we're going to do everything we can do.
Okay.
Because a lot of people think that we're not going to do anything if they have a DNR.
Right. Yeah.
That's only about your heart and your lungs.
So okay. Good.
Good.
I'm glad you put that out, because people do think that and to add to that as well too, is that if you're in a car, like you mentioned before, if you were in a car accident, and even though you may have did all of this and you have a DNR, that does not mean that as a trauma patient that you're going to come in and we're going to go, oh, they have a DNR and we're not going to do anything. No. That doesn't apply to that. We're going to do, like you said, we're going to still render all the care that we need to keep you alive and support you.
Now we're going to talk to your family. If you come in, if you're in stage cancer and you've chosen to have a DNR, which is actually a transportable form, and you have to have it on you. You have to have that original on you for it to be effective.
Okay.
So I mean, the EMS has to see that bright yellow form.
Yeah.
It's no good. That's why you see them hanging in bedrooms and wherever. But if they don't see that form, then they're going to do everything aggressive that they would normally do.
Right.
And they're going to carry you to the hospital and get you stable.
Yeah.
And that's the piece to remember. If you do have that DNR, and your family gets here and says, well, they didn't want to be resuscitated, or they don't want to be resuscitated, then we'll honor those wishes at that point in time.
Yeah. But you just have to know it.
But yes, we're going to check before we're going to do what we need to do, but until we know for sure.
Right. That's a good point. And too, with just talking about the DNR, most of the time that you see that is when you know somebody is terminally ill.
Exactly.
And you know that they have already established what their wishes are, and they know that they are, in the process of going through, dying.
Yes.
And so
we don't want to be afraid of that word.
I know.
That's
it's always a hard word.
It is.
And you're exactly right. And that's why we're having this show talking about advanced care planning, is so that it will not be hard at the end of life.
It's a part of life.
That it's a part of life. I was listening to a radio show the other day, and that was what they were talking about, that people, get so cringy that, and don't want to think about people dying, but that's a part of life. We come in here to stay a while, and then, we're going to go.
The day you're born, you're on your way out.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So, it's just something we need to prepare for.
Yeah.
Or at least be able to discuss and know that we're doing what we need to do.
Absolutely. And making it easier, because I always thought in my mind is that the hardest thing about somebody dying is not, especially if the person knows the Lord, is the fact that they are prepared, but it's the people that they leave behind has the hardest road.
That's who they worry about.
Yeah, and they have the hardest
road. You
can
have this open discussion ahead of time, and that dying person can tell the family, look, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And my mama was able to tell us that, and I loved it, because she said, I'm not afraid of dying.
Yeah.
I hate leaving y'all, but I'm not afraid to die. I'm going to a better place.
Well, Miss Vicki, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and making this conversation a very easy conversation to have. I do hope and I do believe that this has been beneficial to our audience. So thank you again for being here with us. And again, I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers. We are here every Thursday on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM with Family Health Matters. And today I want to thank all of our Facebook, YouTube, and radio listeners for joining us today. So hopefully we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you again, Miss Vicki, for being here on Awesome Radio 106.9.
This is Ruth W. Council, and I listen religiously to WBIS